You are listening to the Calm Down podcast, the podcast where candid, thought-provoking, and rare conversations happen while amplifying people's stories around the world. Here, we take it one day at a time and also rant on simple causes people don't observe or are just oblivious to. I am your host, Violaekene. I am an on-air personality, podcaster, YouTuber, and content creator. Hey Calmers, welcome to another episode of the podcast. It is so thoughtful of you to click the play button to listen to what this episode is all about. So first and foremost, I am so excited to announce to you that this podcast and I we were featured in the latest issue of Podcasters of Niger magazine. That is their March issue. And this means so much to me because when I started this podcast, how clueless I was, how I've learned so much along the journey. Then you came along, you started listening, you loved this podcast, and you always click to listen to new episodes. So when I saw the magazine issue, I felt so nostalgic. I felt really, really grateful for how far I've come in this journey and also how you've also been along with me in this journey. So I really wanted to say thank you so much. Like, you mean so much to me, and I don't take that for granted. I'm going to leave a link to that issue of that magazine in the description of this episode. So do make sure to check it out, download it, read it. It is going to bless you. I was featured alongside two amazing people who are also, one is a podcaster and one is an influencer. So like everything in that magazine issue for March they're just literally filled with gems. And this is like a very huge birthday gift because I am a March baby and this just came right on time. I am super grateful for that. So the link to download it will be in the description of this episode. So straight away to what this episode is all about. So I was thinking about financial literacy, especially for our community. You know, coupled with the whole COVID-19, a lot of people went out of business, and this pandemic really opened our eyes to the fact that saving is so important, and not just saving, investing wisely. So I wanted someone, not just anybody, but someone that is an expert on that particular topic to come on here, share their journey with us, because you know, this podcast is all about amplifying stories. So I wanted the person to come in here, share their story with us, and also give us practical tips on how to save no matter how much you earn. Because there was this argument I was seeing on Twitter one time. Someone tweeted and said, oh, no matter how much you earn, you should save. And some people were saying like, oh, there's an amount that you'll be earning, you won't even be able to save because you're trying to meet up to your needs. So in this episode, our amazing guest, Chinazom Chidolue, she is an amazing person. I don't want to give you a bio of her right now because there is a part where I told her to tell us about herself, so she did an amazing job on that. Please do me a favor and listen to the end of this episode. It is so resourceful. I was literally thinking about you when I was reaching out to Chinazom because I want us to be all financially buoyant and also very, very financially stable. So up next, what you'll be hearing is my conversation with Chinazom, and I'll be right back after that to chat some more with you before we call it a wrap. Hi, Chinazom.
Hi, Viola. How are you doing?
Fine. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm well. Thank you.
How's the surgery? It's better now, right?
Oh, much better. I think the meds are helping majorly. They put me on antibiotics, but I thought I was doing too much, but it was actually good. So, because I feel a lot better now.
Yeah.
Thank God. Thanks for asking.
You're welcome. I actually knew that with that yesterday, doing it by 4 would be so much stress because I've been there and it's not a nice place to be at all.
Yeah.
All right, let's hop right into it. I'll try as much as possible to keep it brief so that you can have your rest for the day. Okay. So first of all, Chinazom, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. We really appreciate you here. All of us in this podcast community, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure, really.
Well, thank you, Viola, for inviting me. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. So can you tell us about yourself? The reason I like to ask people to do this is I wouldn't want to read their bio or something. I would love you to tell us about yourself, because you do a better job at that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, already know my name. My name is Chinazom. On the career front, I am a chartered accountant. I'm a chartered financial analyst level 3 candidate. My background spans for audit. So I worked at PwC as an auditor. PwC is PricewaterhouseCoopers in Toronto, Canada. Then I transitioned to wealth management. So I worked at Canada's largest bank, the Royal Bank of Canada, as an associate in a wealth management group where I helped manage over almost $800 million in assets for high net worth individuals and institutions. And then I recently moved back to Nigeria after living in Canada for 10 years. So I joined Shicluded, which is a digital bank for women based in Lagos, Nigeria. And I am the director of growth and strategy there. And I also lead the wealth advisory practice. So that's me on the career front. And on the family front, I'm engaged to be married soon. And I'm also one of 7 kids to my parents.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. I am so impressed. You're doing amazing. Well done, really. Well done. You said you moved back to Nigeria after 10 years. What would you say influenced that decision to move back, to continue your brand here?
For me, especially now, I think when I moved back, a lot of people were asking, why are you moving back to Nigeria? And most people are trying to leave. Most people are trying to go to Canada. Meanwhile, you're moving back. So I think it was just because from during COVID, during, all that happened, I realized that the most important thing to me was not just, being in this safe environment, safe being Canada, but being close to family and loved ones. My parents live in Nigeria, and my whole family lives in Nigeria. So I just felt like, why am I spending all my time being far away from them? I'd rather just be close to them. And the reason why it was so important at that time was because I know so many people that were affected by COVID and many people that lost their lives and couldn't even see their loved ones. And I was like, I think it just facilitated my move. I always wanted to move back to Nigeria. I just didn't know when it would be. So at that point, it just felt like, okay, let me be close to family, especially at this point. And because there was a lockdown, I was like, well, you know what? You can do anything from anywhere. So I didn't feel like I was restricted when I moved back.
Oh, okay. So how did you get started in your career in wealth management? How did you begin your investing journey that you now share with thousands of your community on and off social media?
Okay, so when I was in accounting, like I mentioned earlier, I was in audit at PricewaterhouseCoopers. That's what I started my career in the accounting field. And I kind of knew that accounting was, I went into accounting because of stability, because I felt like, okay, well, accounting is kind of a good skill to have. And also accounting I spoke to different people right before I joined. I was thinking, should I go into accounting or should I go into finance? And one person I met who had both a CPA designation, and if you don't know what a CPA is, it's just a professional accountant designation, and it's the accounting designation, but the CFA is more like the finance designation. I met somebody that had both, and he said, you know what, I see more CFA resumes on my desk than CPA resumes on my desk. And what that meant was there are more finance people looking for jobs. And he also told me that accountants can do what finance people can do, but finance people can't do what accountants can do necessarily. So I just felt like it would be a good start for me to start my career in accounting and then later on transition to finance, which is exactly what I did. So I started my career in accounting. I was accounted for 3 years, and just before I got my designation. And I just found it to be quite, I don't want to say boring because that's the cliche, but I found it to be quite boring. I didn't really care so much about the historical information of these companies. I cared more about, okay, what makes this company great? What makes this company a company that people can invest in? What makes this company interesting? Why should people so those are the kind of things that I cared about. So when I went to accounting meetings, I would be thinking about, okay, anytime I did an audit, I'll be looking at the MD&A, which is the management discussion and analysis document. And essentially it's just like a letter from the management explaining what is going to happen in the company in the next few years but really what an auditor should be focusing on is actually your, the historical financial statements. But I was always interested in the forward-looking stuff. So kind of I already kind of had that passion for financial literacy. So I felt, okay, why don't I just combine my passion for financial literacy and my interest in, capital markets and, money. I just love talking about wealth and money, and see where that would take me. And then I discovered the career in wealth management, and I was kind of lucky because I kind of knew someone that had a job, like a wealth management practice, and just kind of tapped me on my shoulder and asked me if I would kind of like to be part of, the team. And I took the opportunity. So that's how I got there.
Wow. That must have been a journey for you. It's that thing in life where you never planned you would be somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you suddenly take interest in it, and you look back and you're like, oh, wow, so I'm really here, and you wonder how you got there. And
yeah,
it's just so beautiful. So what was that point that you knew you really wanted to help people live a financially free life? Was there a spectacular event that happened, or something that just hit you and you were like, oh, I think I should channel more of my expertise in helping people get out of financial problems or debt, and educating people financially?
Okay, so when I first I went to undergrad in Canada. I went to Carleton University in Ottawa, Ontario, in Canada. And when I first graduated in 2015, I started asking people around me, like my older friends, like maybe they were in their 30s or late 20s. I was saying, okay, so do you invest? How did you go about investing? Do you know anything about mutual funds? I just used to read these personal finance like books. And when you graduate, you're just like, you're ready to take on the world. You want to be wealthy, you want to be a millionaire by 30. So I just started asking people in their 30s, in their late 20s, okay, how do they invest? And many of them just like, they either didn't care, or they're like, why, you're so weird, like, why are you asking me? Or they just didn't really know. They were like, well, I kind of just, they didn't really know what they were doing, right? And I just realized that people were generally apathetic towards their wealth. Young people were just generally had this general apathy towards their wealth. And I was like, okay, you know what? Why don't I start a blog that would, kind of, first of all, hold me accountable, so that I actually, and then also I went into a bank in Canada, in Toronto, and then I asked, okay, well, I think I had saved like $1,500, right? And then I think my parents also gave me a few $100, as a graduation present as well. And I said, you know what, I want to start investing. And I think when I went to the bank to speak to a financial advisor, he said, okay, well, you don't have enough money to start investing. You don't have enough money, so maybe you come back when you have more money. Like, I'm not going to say no to the bank, but and I found that to be, and I knew that was not true, because I've been reading all these blogs, and I knew that you could start with as little as $50. But like, maybe he just doesn't want to be bothered, right? Because I'm such a small client, the commission on this is probably going to be so low. Like, why am I going to disrupt this Thursday after? So I just felt like, okay, you know what? If this is what these people, tell young people, no wonder people aren't investing, right? So I decided to create a blog and start documenting my journey, because at that point I had I didn't really have a lot of savings, and I used to be kind of like a spendthrift. So I used to spend a lot on random stuff, like necessary things. I just didn't know better. I hadn't built that savings culture. And then I just started a blog, and the blog is called investmentconversations.com. And I used to run that blog. I had to shut it down when I started working in wealth management because of the conflict of interest. But that's, I think, starting that blog and just writing. I'll write something as simple as, how you can get started with investing right now, or how I made my first $500 in investing, or how I, improved my credit score, and all these other things. And then people from all around the world would email me and say, hey, like, that message, that post you made like on February, blah, 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 really changed my life. Like, I literally started saving, and I literally just bought my first laptop because, you inspired me to start saving. But I just bought my first stock, and my stock just paid me my first dividend, and this is so exciting, and I'm obsessed with saving. Thank you so much. And I think I didn't really think too much when I was starting the blog, but when I started hearing those things from people, that feedback, it really made me think, okay, you know what, this could be like a lifelong career. Like, I could definitely do this, and because I'm seeing immediate impact. So that's what led me along this path.
That's so beautiful. I'd love to ask, right? You mentioned that when you went to the bank, right, to do that investment with the money you had, and the the financial advisor that you went to give you that comment, you thought to yourself, oh, so maybe this is one of the reasons why young people aren't so keen on investing, because, oh, maybe they go into a bank like you did and they are told this kind of thing. But I feel like also sometimes some people feel they don't earn enough that they can save. Do you understand? Because I've had these conversations with people where they're like, oh, you should stop telling people to start saving and saving. The thing is that you have to earn a particular amount before you start saving, because, you know, the economy and all of that. So what like practical, realistic advice would you give someone listening right now that sincerely wants financial freedom but doesn't earn enough, quote unquote, now to get there?
Yeah, I mean, well, I totally understand. There are some people, I mean, there are different classes of people, especially in Nigeria, right? You have people that are literally living in poverty. Now, people that are living in poverty, their real job is surviving, not investing. I'm not referring to those people. I'm referring to people who have privilege, like us, right? So, you know, there's a place for people like that as well, like that's going through poverty. But their first priority is just like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Investing and self-actualization is not the first thing they're thinking about. They're thinking about surviving. They're thinking about food, clothing, shelter.
Yeah.
But if you are, you know, middle class, you know, even lower, if you're in the middle class in Nigeria, it's quite possible that you're not investing, that you can't save enough money, because you can't save enough money because you don't earn enough, right? It's quite possible. But what I would say to that kind of person, first of all, is what if they increased your taxes, right? If, for example, your payee tax that came out from your payroll was increased, you probably find a way to cope with it, right? Just, you know, see investing or saving as like that tax, you know, that bill that has to come off of your paycheck. I think that's what I would say, like to someone like that feels like they don't make enough money or something. Because if your tax is actually increased and you have to pay that off, you find a way to live. If your rent increased by 10,000 naira, you find a way. So why don't you just treat saving and investing just like another bill? I think that will be the first thing. The second thing is finding a way to do it, even if it's small, starting small but being consistent. Platforms that give you the opportunity to save for as little as $10, you know, a month, you know, which is the equivalent of 5,000 naira. And many people can afford to save 5,000 naira. And for many people, investing and saving shouldn't be, you know, when you're building your wealth, you have two levers you can pull. You have the income lever or the expenses lever, right? Control your income or your expenses. So many people try to I think people try to focus on the savings part because they feel like they have more control over the savings, because they feel like, okay, I'm making 1 million a month, or I'm making 500,000 naira a month. My expenses right now are 300,000. How about if I decrease the 300,000 expense to 200,000 and have an extra 100,000 naira to save or invest? Yeah, that's good. But you get to a point where you're literally, you can't save and you can't live better than you already are living. You can't spend less money. And what I say, like, is you really have to focus on income. Sometimes it's better to just focus all your time, your energy, your effort into, you know, in yourself, investing in yourself. That's the best investment. And building a revenue stream or your income so that where you're making more money, right? So, for example, if you just graduated from university, maybe you're making 80,000 naira a month. You can barely get by with that, right? So instead of you saving and investing this money, you know, in the stock market, maybe it's actually better for you to save or invest that money in yourself. Take courses that would allow you to increase your earning potential. Network with people so that you can better position yourself to get, you know, better job. You know, pay someone to help you review your CV. Take courses online. You know, do basic. You know, those type of things. Those are the kind of things you should be focusing on to increase your income earning potential.
Okay. So basically, what you're trying to say is that no matter what you earn, you can actually save, right? For people that earn at a particular amount where you give the instance of the tax, because if the tax deduction can actually be done from what you earn per month, that means that you can find a way around it. That means that you can save for that bracket of people that, you know, can't really invest considering how much they earn per month, right? Yeah. So now I want to ask something. What is your definition of poverty? Because I've realized over time that it means so many things to different people. So in the context, and in your area of expertise, right? What is your definition of poverty?
I'm not like a developmental expert, but what poverty just means, not having enough, material possessions or income to take care of your basic needs. I think the developmental definition of someone living in poverty is someone that spends less than, $1 or $2 a day, or makes less than $1 or $2 a day or something like that. And that's, that's a poor person. So that's my understanding of poverty. But obviously, in the world we live in now, it's not just about, money. It's also about, there's something that you call time poverty, where really you can have all the money in the world, but because your life is moving so fast, you don't even have time to spend with your kids. You don't have time to develop your health. You don't have time to sleep. So there's also time poverty and different types of poverty. But it's just being in a state of perpetual lack. I think that's what I would call poverty.
Okay. Are there classes or like digital products you offer or sell that someone listening right now can get to help them, get started in their journey to living a more financially fulfilling life?
Yeah. So when I joined Chidolue, my first thing that I had to do was create a wealth advisory service. So right now we work one-on-one with women to become more intentional, to help them become more intentional about their finances. Now, in Nigeria, especially in this environment, you find that because of the conditioning many women receive or girls receive while they're growing up, we don't really, building wealth is not at the it's not something we think about. So you meet a man that makes 500,000 naira every month, and you meet a woman that makes 500,000 naira every month. And just for the record, that's about 1,200 USD for people that are not Nigerian that are listening. At the end of maybe like 10 years of working, you would see that 5 years, maybe you see that maybe the guy has bought land, he's bought cars, he's bought, different things. Whereas the girl maybe might not have all that much to show for her time in the workforce. And the reason why is because it just doesn't occur to us, right? Because we don't have that, we are conditioned. For example, I know you've heard, your parents say, oh, is that what you're going to do in your husband's house? We never thought about, your house. It's always like, your husband is always the man that always makes those investments and builds wealth, not the girl. So because of that, we, that conditioning follows us to when we're women, and we never even think about it. So even though we're making a lot of money, we're not actively investing. We're not being intentional. So you see in a situation, in a relationship, where even sometimes when the woman makes more money, most of the time that money is actually spent on, non-intangible things like, food for the family, nicer clothes, shoes for the kids, things like that. But if anything happens in a relationship, the man owns the house, the man owns the cars, the man owns all these things. Whereas the woman might actually be spending more money, but on intangible things.
Yeah, I get you. Okay, so what would you be doing? Like, if you weren't doing what you're doing right now, your current job, what would you be doing?
I think, what would I be doing? I think I'll be working in like the IFC, or the International Finance Corporation, which is the subsidiary of the World Bank. I think I'll be doing impact investing, which is essentially you're a venture capitalist for impact projects all across like Africa. So I'll either be working on like what they call DFIs, develop suits. I'll essentially be maybe an investment officer helping to make investment decisions for private projects across Africa. I think that's what I'll be doing.
Yeah. Okay. So people say, right, you have to save, and which is always advice, right? You have to save. But I want to give you an example, right? Now, there's a program called National Youth Service Corps.
I'm doing that right now.
NYSC, which every graduate, exactly. And what, the allowance is 33,000 naira, which is around $87. Now, you would also hear people say, oh, at our own time, we are being paid 19,800 naira. You're supposed to be saving, like, right? And considering the economy and with everything going on, do you think, like, how would someone someone, that is the only thing they earn fresh out of the university. They don't have a job yet. That is the only thing that they're, eating with. How will that person substantially save? Is there any rule to saving effectively no matter how much you earn?
I mean, there's some kind of heuristic, like some rule of thumb, right, for saving and investing. Typically, we have this, what they call in personal finance world, they have what they call 50-30-20 rule. So 50% of any income you get should be saved, should be put towards your needs. So that's your housing, food, things like that. 30% should be towards your wants. So your clothes, your, entertainment, massages, things like that. And then 20% should be towards saving and investing and growing your wealth. So ideally, 20% of that should be going to savings and investing. Now, if you make 33,000 naira, you can't really do anything. That's like less than 7,000 naira, right? Which that's something, but the reality is that if someone is making 3,000 naira a month, that's hardly enough for transportation, right? Especially in Lagos. So say if I were, I'm doing my NYSC right now, by the way, but if I were in that situation where that was my only source of income, and I had to feed myself, and I didn't have anybody and I couldn't live with my parents couldn't support me, I would 100% just kind of find a way to invest in myself. I wouldn't be so focused. I know it sounds very weird to some people, but I would really try to focus on investing in myself. So what that would mean practically would be, is the 33,000, if maybe my expenses are 30,000 naira and have an extra 3,000 naira to spare every single month, I might not necessarily save that money. I might use that money to maybe spend on transportation to go and meet people in offices I want to work in. I'll set up informational interviews with, let's say I wanted to be an accountant. I'll set up informational interviews with all the top partners of accounting firms in Lagos, and pay for my transport, take them out to coffee, take them out to lunch. That's what I'll probably do. Now, everybody's doing virtual calls. Maybe I'll spend more money on credits to be able to talk to a lot more people. Maybe I'll take a course. Maybe I'll buy a nicer t-shirt or a nicer button-down shirt just so I can look more presentable. Or maybe I'll try I'll spend more money on a taxi rather than using an Okada or a bike, so that when I arrive in a meeting, I'll look more professional. And when you're young, when you're starting out, it's very important to keep investing in yourself, because you're laying the foundation for your future success. The amount of, and by doing that, by continuing investing in yourself, first of all, that's the best investment you can make. Second of all, it would really allow you to increase your income significantly. So that's what I would say. Yeah. But if you really wanted to save and invest, if you really said, okay, you know what, I would just rather save and invest because I have family to feed, I would say one thing you can think about is your risk tolerance. You can think about how long you actually want to be investing that money for. If you want to be investing that money for a very, very long time, you can afford to take on a high amount of risk because you're young and you're retiring in probably 40-something years, right? So you can actually start looking at high risk investment like stocks. You don't have to necessarily put it in savings accounts where you're earning less than 1% interest annually. You can actually start looking at investment like stocks, right? So I would recommend foreign stocks, like gain exposure to the US stock market. There are apps that I told you, for as little as, I think even as little as 1,000 naira now, you can actually start investing in the US stock markets. There are apps like Bamboo, like Chaka, like Trove. By the way, I'm not sponsored by any of these. These are just some apps that are out there. These are not endorsements, but you can actually start gaining exposure in the US stock market from that. There's exchange traded funds. There's also known as ETFs that you can purchase on those platforms. You can actually, if you really, really believe in certain companies like maybe Amazon or Tesla, and obviously one Amazon stock is over 3,000, probably close to 3,500 USD for one Amazon stock. You can actually do what they call fractional investing. So you don't have to have $3,200 or $3,500 to buy one Amazon stock. You can actually put $10 and buy a piece of the one Amazon stock. So those are some things you can do. Don't be afraid to take risks, but make sure you actually have an emergency fund first before you start investing. And the reason why an emergency fund is important is because if you ever lose your job, if you ever, have an emergency, you can't work, you can't, there's another lockdown, this will be able to, give you some stability and give you some peace of mind. So that you don't have to kind of start taking on expensive debt, especially in Nigeria where debt is so expensive. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay. So what's one thing you wish you had known when you began your career?
One thing I wish I had known is, you mean for my career or investing?
investing generally?
One thing I wish I knew about investing is that you have to be consistent for it to see results. Sometimes I would maybe invest this lump sum amount, but I wish I had, even if it's just a small amount, it's just like exercising, right? If you go to the gym like once every 2 weeks or once every month and do like 3-hour exercise and, kind of kill it at the gym that one day in a month. Yeah, it's nice, but it really doesn't really help you at all. But if you literally exercise for 15 minutes every single day or 20 minutes every single day, it actually is much better than going to the gym for 3 hours once a month. So I would say just being consistent, like just setting up a system that would allow you to do what you want. So that means automatically paying off your bills, automating like saving, automating investing, and making sure you're doing it constantly, no matter what. Like I mentioned earlier, seeing it as a bill, and really it is a bill. It's a bill for your future self. Your future self is billing you, right? So if you're able to live the life you want to live down the road, and that's one thing I wish I knew earlier on. And in my career, one thing I wish I had known, and one thing I wish I had practiced is just not being afraid. I think it was in many situations I let fear rob me of opportunities, but just believing in myself. I think believing in yourself is probably one of the hardest lessons that most people would have to learn, in their career. So just believing in myself and not being afraid to take risks. That would be another one.
Okay. What biggest failure have you like experienced, and what did you learn from it in your journey?
My biggest failure. That's a great question. I think my biggest failure, nothing comes to mind as one of my monumental failures. But I think some of my failures, when I think about that, is probably situations where I allow people to take advantage of me, or maybe where I felt used and abused by people in my career. So that, because of fear and because of, what would they say? Allowing myself to be cheated of opportunities. So in a situation, even in something as simple as me, this idea, or and then not calling someone out because they took the credits instead of me, when the business idea with someone, and then the person goes and literally steals my idea and kind of tells me back the idea. This is a real life story, by the way. Tells me back the idea in, paraphrase the idea back to me like a day after I told the person the idea. And I'm like, but me letting it slide because of, fear, like, let me just keep the peace. So going forward, I think I'll raise hell. I'll just be more bold.
Yeah. Okay. What are the best resources that have really helped you along the way? Like resources you've used, maybe books you've read, or anything at all?
For books, my favorite books, Richest Man in Babylon, that's the key, and investing and the finance classic. I honestly like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I know it's very, very controversial, but I really do like that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Those are two really good books. And if you're starting a business, one book you should read, or if you're a manager, one book you should read is called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. The E-Myth, so that's the entrepreneurship myth. So E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Those are 3 top books. And in terms of just investing resources and tools, I think YouTube, the school of YouTube, is like the best. Literally, you can type in, how can I buy my first stock? Or should I buy a stock? Or should I buy a stock? Like you can type in anything and you see someone explain every single thing. So those are some good tips.
Okay. What is one myth about, investing that you'd love to debunk? One general myth people love to say about it that is not true that you'd love to debunk?
One major myth is investing is not the same as trading. People come to me and say, hey, do you invest in Forex? Forex trading is trading, it's not investing. These are highly speculative events. And it's not the same as investing. Those are two. Like I was talking to somebody about it today. She's like, "Why? Well, do you do Forex? Why don't you do Forex? Like Forex trading?" So essentially, they kind of speculate on if the Forex groups would go up or down, and kind of put more money. And it's kind of betting, right? But that's not the same as investing. When you're looking about investing, you're really looking at the fundamentals of the company you're investing in and seeing if it makes sense for you, and if it makes sense at this time. Really, Warren Buffett always says, if you're not able to kind of put your money money, invest your money, and then go to sleep for 10 years, then you're really not investing. You should that's the quality of companies you should be looking at. So investing is not the same as trading. So it's not the same as forex trading. It's not the same as gambling. It's not even really So for anything you're investing in, it has to have some kind of fundamental value. And yeah, that's one thing, that major myth that I would like to debunk.
Okay. Who are 3 people that inspire you?
That's a really good question. I think Warren Buffett for sure. Actually, last year, or not last year, 2 years ago, 2019, I went to see Warren Buffett in Omaha, Nebraska, because every year, usually, well, apart from COVID, he has his annual event in Omaha, Nebraska for his company. So I was able to experience that, which was amazing. So I actually saw Tim Cook, who is the CEO of Apple, and all these amazing, Bill Gates was there as well. That was a great event for me. So yeah, Warren Buffett definitely. Who else? I mean, I kind of like the Obamas.
Yeah.
And then also, I forget her name, but Melody Hobson. She's like one of the first Black women. She's actually now the chairman of the board of Starbucks. She's one of the her name is Melody Hobson. She's the co-CEO of Ariel Investments, and she's a Black woman. So
yeah, I definitely love to see Black women doing amazing things. It is so inspiring, so inspiring. Okay, the second to the last question I have is, if you could step into my shoes, right, as the host, what is one question you would have asked yourself that I didn't ask you?
That is such a good question. One question you should have asked me, That's a good, very, very good question. I actually haven't thought about that. Well, I think one question is maybe what I'm looking forward to. I mean, what is one thing I'm looking forward to maybe in this year or something like that. And the reason why I say that is because sometimes we focus so much on our failures and stuff, but maybe we don't focus enough on what do we want to do with all these things that we've learned and all these experiences we've had. So yeah, maybe that.
Okay, so now can you answer that? So what are you looking forward to?
To be honest, I'm just looking forward to growing in my role in Secluded, pursuing different, business ventures of my own, continuing to invest and build my wealth for my family, and also getting married. That's something I'm working. I'm currently planning a wedding and studying for my CFA exam and working. So it's very busy, but I'm definitely looking forward to, getting married this year.
Yeah, that is why I appreciate you giving me time for this, because I know definitely you have a very tight schedule. So this was very much appreciated. Okay, so finally, where can my listeners connect with you on social media? Some people might be more interested in being a part of your journey. How do they connect with you after listening to this episode?
Yeah, so I mostly have Instagram. So my Instagram is Chinazom, ChinazomC, Chinazom_C, and I'm sure you probably link it in your notes as well. Then that's essentially how most people can find me on my Instagram.
Okay, and they can send you DMs or email. Do you prefer email or DMs for further inquiries or something?
You can send me a DM, and if you wanted to email me, Chinazom, Chinazom @secluded.com. Secluded is SHECLUDED.com.
Okay, I'll link all of that in the description of this episode, so anybody can that wants to reach out to definitely do reach out. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much, Viola. It was a pleasure joining you. All right, thank you.
All right, yeah, thank you. I learned so much from this conversation. It was so enlightening, and I was really, really encouraged by her journey. The thing about stories and just hearing other people's perspectives, hearing their journeys, is that it opens your eyes to how beautiful we humans are and resilient in terms of going for what we really want. It is so beautiful, honestly. I didn't just get gems. I got an insight into her journey and then a glimpse into, what she stands for, which is a privilege, honestly, if you ask me, because it's not something you get to do all the time, to kind of feel someone's journey, life journey, especially their career path or their personal life. So it's really, really amazing. Guys, the details and the links links to all Chinazom's social media platforms will be in the description of this episode, just in case afterwards you want to reach out to her, you want to ask her questions. Like she already said, her DMs and her emails are open for you to ask and for you to make your inquiries. So please feel free, just mention that you are from the Calm Down podcast. Okay? All right? Just do that. Okay, so if you enjoyed this episode, please do not forget to drop a voice message. You know, I love to hear from you. I love to hear your thoughts. Are there some things more that you'd love to ask Chinazom? Or is there an opinion that you have? I would love to hear your thoughts. Please drop a voice message. I'll leave links to do that in the description box of this episode, and your voice message will be featured in a subsequent episode of this podcast. It can be your opinion, it can be a comment, anything at all. You're so much welcome, because this is a safe haven for you to express yourself and share your story. So if you want to share your story on this podcast, I have created a form that, will help me schedule an appropriate time for us to record your story. The link to that form is also in the description box. And do not forget to give this podcast good ratings on that app you're using to listen to me right now. Please give us 5-star ratings. Drop a review. It will help in more discoverability and visibility of this podcast. I'd really, really appreciate that so much. And if you want to support this podcast for more expansion, for more visibility, getting new podcast equipment like microphones and upgrades and all of that, you can join our Patreon, or you can do a one-time contribution or a monthly recurrent contribution on Shukran or Anchor. I'm going to leave the links again in the description box of this episode. Don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms. Instagram at the_calm_down_podcast. Follow us and join the conversation on Twitter as well. I have so much planned for our social media platforms this year. I really want to build up our community, like make it super chatty and fun. And if you don't follow on these social media platforms, on our social media platforms, you're going to miss out on a whole lot. Trust me. So I'm going to see you in episode 44. It's been an amazing pleasure having you listen to this point. I really do appreciate you so much. Have an amazing day, and don't forget that you're amazing, and don't forget to save, invest, and prepare yourself for the future. I love you so much, and God loves you more.